In part 1 we went in depth into the masterful game Michael and Roth were playing on each other. We analyzed all the events and circumstances that led up to Michael taking on his biggest and most powerful enemy. However, by the end we left you with more questions than answers. So, let's continue from where we left off. As you may recall, Michael is now certain that it was Roth who was scheming to destroy the Corleone family and completely take over. However, Michael is now left with the mystery of why is Roth doing all this, who was the traitor within the family? And how did Roth manage to play such a brilliant deception on him without him realizing? Roth understood he wasn't with an average gangster or hoodlum, he understood he was dealing with Don Michael Corleone, son of the notorious Don Vito Corleone, who had worked alongside and learnt from for years. Roth himself was an extremely intelligent man and possessed an extreme skill of vigilance and foresight, to always be 10 moves ahead of everyone. Roth's biggest advantage, that gave him superiority, was his cunning ability to constantly adjust to different situations, while always anticipating and planning for when things don't go to plan. And so without further ado, let's get right into it. While Michael was in Cuba, Frank Pentangeli was following his Don's orders and played along as if he knew nothing of what Michael revealed to him.
It was Hyman Roth that tried to have me killed. I know it was him. Jesus Christ, Mike. Jesus Christ.
So, after agreeing to setting up a sit-down, Frankie finally goes to meet with the Rosato brothers to settle all the trouble between them. Frankie had only agreed for the sake of Michael, he genuinely hated them, but he respected Michael, and so agreed to swallow his pride and try to come to some sort of agreement. However, the meeting turns out to be a setup, and was nearly strangled to death. But what happens next is what's really shocking. When Tony Rosato's men were trying to strangle Frankie, one of them says,
Michael Corleone says hello!
As we learn later, Michael actually had nothing to do with this, so who did? And to add to the obscurity, a cop conveniently passes by the bar looking through the window. Now there are two possible explanations. The first is that it was just a coincidence and Rosato just said,
Michael Corleone says hello!
Just to add to his suffering, knowing he had walked into his own grave, and that cop had just by chance stumbled into the area to then investigate a bar he regularly visits. It's possible, but not very convincing.
Who had Frank Pentangeli killed?
What we think actually happened was that it was a brilliant play orchestrated by none other than Hyman Roth himself. Let's start with the location. Roth probably told Rosato to set up that meeting at that particular bar, either knowing that cop visits the bar at that particular time every day, or the cop was under his payroll and told him to be in the area. Therefore, when he heard Frankie screaming, he went in to investigate. And so he came in ruining Rosato's attempt to take out Pentangeli. The most important part of all this, which Rosato probably didn't even realize, was saying,
Michael Corleone says hello!
Because since Frankie now thinks that Michael had set him up, it would have driven him mad. Or, the Rosato brothers were in on it, and just needed to scare Frank into believing he was actually betrayed. Either way, Roth definitely had something to do with this situation. And so, Roth had Michael essentially lay out a trap for himself.
You just go along as though you know nothing. I've already made my move.
We left off with Roth angrily confronting Michael about the $2 million that he was supposed to bring as part of the deal, which was his share into the investment. So Michael tells Fredo to bring it in person. Michael probably had no intention to give Roth the money, but he needed to pretend everything was totally normal, as Roth had eyes and ears all over Havana. However, as we mentioned in the previous video, Michael knows Roth was set on taking him down, and concluded that whether or not he receives the money, he was going to try to take it, and because the money is in Cuba, and he knows exactly where it is, Michael was of no use to him. He was going to get rid of Michael once and for all. But Michael has also made his move, and has the upper hand. Before the party, Michael meets with Roth one last time. And the first thing Roth says,
My sixth sense tells me your brother Fredo brought a bag full of money. Where is it?
But Michael continues to play along to keep Roth in the dark just a little while longer.
You pulling out?
Just wanna wait.
Michael then confronts Roth on why he had Frank Pentangeli killed. And this is where Michael finally gets his answer on why Roth was doing all this.
There was this kid I grew up with. He was younger than me. Sort of looked up to me, you know. That kid's name was Mo Green. This was a great man of vision and guts. As much as anyone, I loved him and trusted him. Someone put a bullet through his eye. No one knows who gave the order. When I heard it, I wasn't angry. I knew Mo. I knew he was headstrong, talking loud, saying stupid things. So when he turned up dead, I let it go. And I said to myself, this is the business we've chosen. I didn't ask who gave the order.
So in the end, what Roth was really seeking, what motivated him to do all this, was revenge. This means Roth had been infuriated for years, waiting to make his strike once and for all. Explaining why his plan was so elaborate and lethal. His hatred for Michael was brewing for years, and so explains his reasons for coming after the Corleone family. We don't know if Michael had known about this close relationship between Roth and Mo. But overlooking his past actions that directly affected his new business partner was a huge mistake on his part. Roth had, without realizing, exposed himself. He didn't realize this was the last piece to the puzzle Michael needed. Roth had finally made his first major mistake. Once Roth had finally unveiled his true intentions, Michael was not surprised. He had got the answer he needed to now take Roth out. However, dealing with Roth wasn't going to be as easy as dealing with any of his enemies in the past. Even though Michael finally uncovered Roth's plot, he failed to anticipate Roth's cunning. On New Year's Eve, Michael went out with Fredo to entertain a few government officials and congressmen in Havana, acting as though everything was normal. However, this is when Michael unveils a very grim and disturbing fact that answers his second question, which was, who was the traitor?
Johnny Ola told me about this place. He brought me here. I didn't believe it, but seeing is believing, huh?
Anybody I know in Havana? I don't know. Hyman Roth? Johnny Ola?
No. Old man Roth had never come here, but old Johnny knows these places like the back of his hand.
From Michael's perspective, this was the worst possible situation he could be in. As we all know it, the traitor was Fredo all along.
I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart.
Make sure to watch our video specifically analyzing that whole situation in proper detail after this video. Michael sends Buscetta, who was his personal bodyguard, but also his professional assassin, who was specifically hired directly from Sicily. Buscetta's first task was to take out Johnny Ola, in which he easily and swiftly managed to do. He manages to locate him at a nearby hospital, then easily reaches Hyman's room. But before he was able to take him out, Cuban soldiers bursted in and he was taken out. And so, Roth too has now miraculously survived, and instead of resolving all his problems in one blow, Michael's troubles have just gotten worse. As now he has officially declared war on Hyman Roth and all his associates. After Michael manages to escape and returns from Cuba, he must now do everything in his power to protect the family. Now, he has uncovered Roth's plot, found out who the traitor was, but unfortunately for him, even with Roth in extremely poor health, his genius ability to be 5 moves ahead of Michael and using his masterful strategic prowess allowed to still come out on top. Even though what seemed to be unrelated to Roth, the Senate was investigating the growing influence and power of the Mafia in the US. And Michael, being the most powerful Don, was the center of this investigation. But Michael knew all this and had planned to use it to remove these accusations, as he tries to enter the legitimate business world. However, as we all know, what happened next completely struck Michael by surprise. As you may recall from the start of the video, we discussed Roth's intentions with wanting to take out Frank Pentangeli. Well, now it's very clear why he did all this. Roth had been positioning himself to have different options to take out Michael. Roth knew Michael was very intelligent and so couldn't underestimate him. So, now Roth had a senator under his payroll and had persuaded Willie Chichi to testify against Michael. But even that wasn't what completely caught Michael off guard.
Roth, boy, he played this one beautifully.
All this time, Michael has been able to somehow dodge most of Roth's major hits, however not even Michael or really anyone could have anticipated this. After miraculously surviving the Rosato Brothers trap, Frank, even though very reluctant to do so, breaks his oath of omerta and agrees to also testify against Michael. On the basis Michael had tried to take him out. Hence why Roth made sure Rosato's men say this.
Michael Corleone says hello.
Roth had knew Michael was due to testify and had placed this as a contingency plan. If Frankie testifies, it literally means the end of the Corleone dynasty. The whole empire would crumble if a real Corleone wasn't at its head. Nevertheless, Michael goes to extreme lengths and phenomenally manages to survive and maneuver past this deadly and devastating blow. This is a question that we all have been wondering for years: who opened the drapes? Here's what we know. Someone with direct access was able to get into Michael's room while Kay was sleeping and have them open to give the assassins a clear shot. We know that Fredo was helping Roth and Ola from the inside. It's also in Fredo's interest for them to take out Michael. We also see the assassins dead outside Fredo's room, which could also be a hint. So everything we just said points directly at Fredo, but when he confesses to Michael and Tom, he seems to have genuinely not known it was a hit. But this implies he had something to do with it, therefore he definitely was involved. But in terms of who literally opened them, it probably was not him personally. He probably sent a maid to open them, to avoid any suspicion. Also, based on what Kay was saying, the drapes were closed before she went to sleep. Therefore, someone had went in without raising any suspicions, specifically, someone within the compound. It is possible that Roth had other infiltrators in the Corleone organization. You decide, but as we said, all these factors directly imply Fredo was responsible in some capacity.
You broke my heart.
From the very beginning, Michael never completely trusted Hyman Roth. However, Michael's ambition, and even admiration for Roth, blinded him from the fact that he was conspiring against him. After the assassination attempt at his home, there were two major suspects. It's possible that he didn't know for sure, and was playing both Roth and Pentangeli. However, as we discussed in part 1, he comes to the conclusion that Frankie had no interest or ambition to take him out, therefore leaving Roth as the main suspect. So, he knew it was Roth by the process of elimination. His suspicions were confirmed after he went to Cuba. Unknown to Michael, Roth was scheming to have him killed to avenge the death of Mo Green, his longtime friend. Roth manipulated Michael's brother Fredo into going behind his back, unwittingly providing vital information that was used to arrange an attempt on Michael's life, which nearly succeeds. Roth also attempted to murder Pentangeli, while making him think that Michael was to blame, to later have him testify against him.